Alrighty, good evening once again. I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss with another weather update for you. Very important stuff. We are still here monitoring the weather, monitoring these storms, monitoring the rainfall. We are watching it all. Very, very important to note. It is late, and I know a lot of people are sleeping, but if you are in Northwest Georgia, we are streaming on YouTube. We're also streaming on Facebook. We're live on Facebook right now. We want to make sure that you are up to date on the latest with our forecast and what people can expect overnight tonight, going into your Sunday morning, specifically into Northwest Georgia, because that's where we are most concerned with the potential for flooding. Here's a look at our current satellite and radar. Over the last 2 hours, that's what the motion you're seeing, just stalled out rain. And that's what's increasing that flooding threat, unfortunately. If we put a pause to it as of right now, this is a look at our current radar. Definitely some very heavy rainfall all across Northwest Georgia, stretching back into portions of Alabama, even some very light rain showers that are moving south of Birmingham. Let's take a closer look. We also turn on some of our warnings. I know it's hard to see because the flash flood warning is in green. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn that radar off so that you have a better look at exactly what we are seeing. And I'll move that up just a little bit. You're seeing overlapping flood warnings. It does include Floyd County, where Rome is located. In fact, really, Rome has received probably more than 6 inches in around 8 hours of rain right now, even as we head back into portions of Alabama. Unfortunately, it does include, in fact, there you go. That is a brand new flash flood warning that just popped up. So I'm going to zoom out just a little bit. I'm going to get some more information on what that new warning is so that we can walk through it together. We can see exactly what we're looking at. I've been monitoring this situation for the last, well, really since the 6 p.m. show. Once the 6 p.m. show finished, I was started to get a little bit concerned about flooding in Northwest Georgia. Well, I saw with that stalled out front really bringing some heavy rainfall totals to that Northwest Georgia corridor, definitely very concerning for me. And I know that a lot of people have flooding on their mind. We have seen tons of flooding here in the summer across the southeast for this summer specifically. So what just happened is there's a brand new flash flood warning for Floyd and Polk. I'm going to read the bulletin to you, and I know this might seem a little bit unconventional. This is not normal TV. This is live stream. So what you see is what you get. We're kind of working it together. In fact, Akila, we have a digital producer who is here with me. I don't have my IFB in, so I'm going to pop it in really quickly so that she can communicate with me and I can communicate with her a little bit better, just in case need be. Okay, so this is the latest on the flash flood warning. This is in Floyd County as well as Polk County. It is until 12:45 a.m. That is for today, 12:45 a.m. This is the one in Floyd and in Polk County. So what you're looking at is this warning specifically. Okay, that one is an old one that does expire at 12:45 a.m. If you want to know exactly where this warning is for, this one once again for Floyd and Polk counties specifically, and this does include the areas near Rome. It says flash flooding of small creeks and streams, urban areas, highways, streets, and underpasses, and other poor drainage areas are all included for southwestern Floyd County and Polk counties as well. So I'm going to close out that bulletin. That was the latest. They extended the time for that. They issued a brand new flash flood warning there. I have to change weather offices to get the latest on this brand new one. This is for Cleburne and Calhoun, Alabama. 12:12. That was 2 minutes ago. So Cleburne and Calhoun County. So that is this brand new warning that you can kind of see that pokes out right here. It does include Cleburne. So Cleburne County, there are now 2 flash flood warnings for your area. The first one does have a considerable tag. That expires at 12:30. That one is probably most important. Once again, 12:30, that's when that one expires with the considerable tag. This newest flash flood warning is until 2:15 a.m. All of it Doppler radar, but the National Weather Service, their Birmingham office, says between 2 and 3 inches of rain have fallen already and is increasing the flash flooding concern in Calhoun and Cleburne counties. Some locations that may experience flash flooding include Jacksonville, Piedmont, Glencoe, Weaver, Fruithurst, Jacksonville State University, Mars Hills, Alexandria, Muscadine, Southside, Liberty Hill, Coleman Lake and Campground, Knighton's Crossroads, Sweetwater Lake, Oak Level, Broaden Springs, Sulphur Springs, and Wellington. Once again, these are all of the towns, all of the neighborhoods, all of the cities that are included in this brand new flash flood warning for Calhoun and Cleburne counties in Alabama. Cleburne County is part of our viewing area. So I know that if you're in Metro Atlanta and you're watching us on either YouTube, or if you're watching us on Facebook, or you're watching us on our 11 Alive Plus app because you were just trying to see some weather streams, Cleburne County is part of our viewing area. And unfortunately, they've gotten a lot of rainfall here. We're going to get to that in a second. But that is the flood warning that was just issued at 12:12 a.m. You can see this is, you can keep up with the actual time. It's 12:16 a.m. So that is for Birmingham and our Alabama counties. Here in Georgia, the latest warning was for Floyd and Polk County. There's also a flash flood warning north of our viewing area, and that is Whitfield and Murray counties. That one has been extended. That time has been extended. Originally, it was supposed to be expired, but now that goes until 12:45 as well. Not too concerned about there. However, I will say in Whitfield County, that has been the place where we've seen the most flooding reports. In fact, earlier this evening around 9:30, several reports of flooded roads, like Duck Gap Road. I used to work in Chattanooga, so I'm very familiar with Duck Gap Road. It's one of the main roads in Dalton. Dalton is definitely seeing some pretty high rain rates and have been seeing a lot of flooding as well. And in our viewing area, the good news is we have not heard any reports. That does not mean it's not happening. It is still very late at night and people could be sleeping, which is good in some sense. If the water's not rising too high, then it's going to recede and it'll be okay if you're just talking about street flooding. But we have seen some of these isolated showers even in the afternoon hours. Really just Thursday, we saw some reports in Summerville, Georgia, that had some pretty heavy rain showers, and it produced some flooding with just an isolated shower. So that's why this is a little bit concerning, because as we take a look into our radar, and I'll put our radar drape back on so we can see exactly what's happening, and we can see that rain once again. Unfortunately, we've been just seeing the same areas just have that heavy rainfall, and it does not move. And in fact, as we put a loop on it, this is a look at the last 2 hours. Usually when we see rainfall that develops, we start to kind of see it move eastward. But over the last 2 hours, same rain, same rainfall rates, and it's continuing to fall right now. Now, here's a look into Metro Atlanta. Metro Atlanta right now, mostly dry. There's one shower that is in DeKalb County near Snellville, a little bit south of Lawrenceville. This is a look at our tower camera. This is very telling. We can start to see those ceilings dropping just a little bit right during our 11 o'clock show. Now this is going to be a fog concern into Metro Atlanta. We'll talk about visibility a little bit later, but I want to show people who are, just now really joining us or who are here about the flooding in our Northwest Georgia counties. I want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on. This is a look into Blue Ridge. I know that it's a little bit further off to the west, off to the east, than where that heavy rainfall is. But earlier you could see that heavy rain flowing down the hill there. This is a look into Rome. It's not actively raining at our camera right now, at least not heavy enough for us to pick it up. I'm gonna see if I can turn this camera and see if I can get a better look on this Rome camera actually, so that we can see if it is raining or if we can pick up on any of the potential for flooding. Okay. I'm going to get down on the street level here, move this over. Okay, so it is actively raining. I can see the street lights are helping us out with this weather story here. It's not, sheets of rain, because you can still see, However, I can see from that street light that it is still actively raining. Where this tower camera is, obviously right now, I'm not seeing any flooding, which is good. This is a 360 view, so it'll go all the way around. So we'll keep investigating to see if there's anything that's happened. Around 10:30 or so, there was a report that Rome had collected 5 inches of rain in 7 hours. So that was definitely concerning. That's another reason why we decided to stick around to give you guys another update about what's happening. You can see how heavy the rainfall is falling from the street lights, but we're not seeing a lot. It's really like it's almost like a heavy mist almost. Kind of that annoying mist where you definitely have to have your windshield wipers on, but it's not heavy enough for you to not be able to see and lose your visibility, but still a decent amount of rain. I'm gonna pan it a little bit further and tilt down. I just trying to make sure that these streets and things are okay. We're not seeing any major flooding in downtown, which right now we're not seeing, but this is a better look at. You can see that rain coming sideways off of that street light, and you can see the Rome flag there blowing in the wind. So it is actively raining, but I'm not seeing any flooding into downtown Rome. I'm going to keep this camera actually where it's at, which is good. And we can show another camera so we can get another look into what is happening outside. Our Blue Ridge camera is too far east, but that is probably the best camera that we're going to have right now. Okay, this is another look at our flash flood warnings. And in fact, I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more so that we can get a better look at them. And I'm going to have to move this. This is real time. So because they just issued that brand new warning. So I'm going to have to make sure that we're seeing all of the warnings on the screen. Move that up there. Okay. So this is a look at all of the overlapping warnings. And unfortunately, as the rainfall keeps falling, that is going to continue to happen. I wouldn't be surprised if we see some more flash flood warnings. I'm going to just check my phone to make sure we're not missing any alerts. As of right now, I'm not seeing anything from the National Weather Service that is alarming, but it is still definitely something that we are keeping our eye on. So they're not talking about extending the warnings just yet, but that could change. Let's talk about a flash flood watch. This is also very important. The National Weather Service in Peachtree City, which is what operates here in Atlanta, they did message me back. I messaged them earlier to see if they were going to issue a watch for our area and for Northwest Georgia. And they don't think that it's warranted as of right now, which is good news. However, it's something that they are continuing to monitor. However, you can see that Cleburne and Randolph counties, this is Randolph, this is Cleburne, they are under that flash flood watch. So that watch has been issued, and it's been issued for quite some time. This is the model that I think is doing the best at depicting the weather story for us, and I will show you why. We look at models and we look at how we choose which model to show you all, especially when it's actively raining. We try to get a gauge to see which model is kind of materializing the best. So which one is starting more accurate to the actual radar. What you're seeing right now, this says Sunday at 12 a.m., right? So obviously this is a little bit further. It's 12:24. So this is our forecast track, right? And this is a look at the actual radar. So yes, it is showing heavier rain. However, it's doing a good job at materializing that rain. So that's why I think that this forecast track is probably the most accurate. I'm going to put it in motion for us. Over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to start to see some of that rain taper off just a little bit. However, it does not completely take that rain away. It does show that around 5 a.m. in Floyd County, the rain continues to slack up. I think what's going to be happening is we're going to start to see some of this rain start cycling. So it's going to weaken, and then it's going to start to get heavy at times. And that's what we've been seeing over the last 30 minutes or so. The last time I checked that roam camera, it was heavily raining. Now we're seeing that rain slack up just a little bit. And that trend looks like it could be continuing until at least around 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning. Now, if you have any early morning plans, whether you're going to church, you're going to brunch, whether you're going to just enjoy the cooler temperatures that we're going to be having for your Sunday, if you have to leave the house early, take your time. You could still be seeing some ponding if that rain is definitely getting high in some places. Some homes, some neighborhoods just aren't built the best. So while we're seeing the main roads there, downtown Rome, being nice and clear, that does not mean that it's the same case around the rest of the county. Now, this forecast track goes all the way until your Saturday, and you can kind of see that spotty showers are definitely going to continue. One thing for sure, it doesn't matter where you are, it's going to be cloudy and cooler for your Sunday because of the cloud cover, because of that rain chance. And it does not look like we're going to be getting as heavy rain, especially in Northwest Georgia, for your Sunday. Still definitely a chance. Now, this is a look at our flood risk for, it says Sunday. It has already transitioned into Sunday. So there is a slight risk in Northwest Georgia for some more flooding. That's the thing that we are concerned about. When they upgraded us into that slight risk, that's when I started making sure that we were paying very close to that. It's that forecast and the forecast track, because whenever they talk about this comes from the Storm Prediction Center. So the same with our level 1, our marginal risk for severe weather. It's the same concern with our flooding. This is a look at our secondary forecast track, one that we use here very often. But as you can see from that one, I'm going to back it back just a little bit. It does not materialize as good as the other one. This is showing that the rainfall has almost stopped, and that's just not accurate right now. Even when we look at the radar and we see, yes, it's heavier rainfall than what the other model was predicting, at least it has the rain. This one does not have the rain, so that's why I don't think that that rainfall is going to be stopping as early as this one is saying. It does have heavier rainfall going to central as well as East Georgia, and then as we continue, even going into, your Sunday afternoon, it does have us being more dry than what we saw today. Both models agreeing on that. However, it's this overnight rainfall that the models are just not agreeing with. This is a look at our severe weather threat for, it has already updated because we're past midnight now, but for Monday into your Tuesday, it does not matter. Even into your Sunday, we're not looking at a severe weather threat, which is great news. However, the flooding risk is not quite done until this rainfall stops. And I want to walk you through that forecast track once again so that we can see it together. I have to back it back and then I have to pull it forward. So I know that was confusing. So here is a look. This is at midnight at 12:30. So really within the next 2 minutes or so, rainfall still continuing. And that is about accurate with what we're seeing right now. And it does look like that rain is going to continue in Northwest Georgia at least until 5 or 6 o'clock in the morning. And then we start to see things taper off as we head into the overnight hours. Here's another thing that I want to look at when we go back to our radar really quickly, when we talk about this flooding threat and what we're seeing. I'm going to put on the 24-hour rainfall totals. I'm going to zoom out just a little bit first before I start to point some plots on here and see exactly how much rainfall we have gotten. Now it says 24 hours, but I don't want you to get caught up on that number. Really, most of this rainfall has been within the last 10 to 12 hours. So keep that in mind. In the last 10 to 12 hours, there has been some really heavy rainfall, really going through the same corridor over and over again. You can see how it has turned red in that area, even orange. That bright orange is right where those flash flood warnings are located. So that's another reason why we want to take this threat really seriously. I'm going to zoom in literally where all of the heavier rainfall totals are right now. So look at that. That's 6.3 near Cedartown. 5.5, 4.8. 5.1, and 2.5. And I'll move this over just a little bit. But that's pretty alarming. So this is within the last 10 to 12 hours or so. At the high end of Floyd County, you're looking at 2.5 inches of rain. And then right through the heart of Floyd County, you're looking at 4 to 6.5 inches, really 5 to 6.5 inches. You can just round that up. And then even as you head through the state line, through the I-20 corridor, maybe almost 6.5 inches of rain, and then 5 inches of rain as you head back into Piedmont, Alabama. And that's a little bit closer to us than Jacksonville is, but Jacksonville is included in that latest flash flood warning. And I know a lot of kids, there could be some football players there, maybe some band members, but school has not started back for college students yet. So that's good news, but this is a very, very lived area from Piedmont into Jacksonville. So that's another reason why we want to make sure that you guys are aware of what's going on. Now, that is our rainfall collected so far. That's not including what we are anticipating to continue to fall. And I'm going to go back out and I'm going to put a loop on this one more time, because it is very important that we look at the radar and see what's actively happening. So whenever we see these yellows and these oranges and these reds, that lets us know that that's really heavy rainfall. But then if I put on the now, just like what we saw on our camera in Rome, and that is why we're getting a little bit of a break where that tower camera is, but there's still heavy rainfall moving through North Floyd County, and it does include portions of this flash flood warning. Most importantly, I know it's 12:31, so let me see if they expired this flash flood warning that had that considerable tag on it. That was in our Birmingham office. This is for Cleburne and Calhoun, Alabama. Okay, so what they did was they just replaced it. Okay, so that's good news. So what happened, and I'll walk you through what's going on right now. There is, at 11:48 p.m., they issued a flash flood warning that had a considerable tag. So that means that they were concerned about the potential for life-threatening flooding. That was supposed to expire at 12:30 a.m. What they did was they basically reissued a brand new flash flood warning for Cleburne and Calhoun, Alabama, and they took off that considerable tag. So as of right now, they're not worried about life-threatening flooding. However, that does not mean that all the roads are clear. You need to make sure that you are paying close attention. If you have to travel out within the next 4 to 5 hours, that some of that rain could linger around, or you could be seeing some pretty heavy ponding in some places, because we're talking about really heavy rainfall rates, like what I was saying, anywhere from really 2.5 to 6.5 inches of rain. And that's a lot of rainfall in a short amount of time. So that's why we're looking at this flooding threat to be rather serious. And I'm going to take this radar drape off one more time before I return you back to our radar loops. And if you are watching us on YouTube or on Facebook Live, I just want to make sure that you are aware that you need to download our 11 Live Plus app. So what happens is we have 24/7 radar loops, and it's a stream. You can download our app. You can go to Weather 24/7 and pull us up on your phone, on your Roku, on your smart TV, and you can stream us so that you can look at those radar loops all the time. And if you live in Northwest Georgia, that's going to be very helpful for you overnight, because as that rainfall kind of cycles, it's going to pick up, then it's going to weaken off, then it's going to pick up, then it's going to weaken off. You'll be able to see for yourself where the flash flood warnings are, where the flash flood watch is. Once they expire it, you'll also be able to see those notifications in real time as they go along. It has a little bit of music, so maybe it'll help you go to sleep. But one thing, the most important thing that I want to tell you is to turn those notifications on your phone. Make sure that you have flash flood warnings activated on your phone so that you can see in real time if the National Weather Service issues another flood watch or another flash flood warning for your area. As of right now, I do feel comfortable, since they took away that considerable tag of saying that, you should definitely make sure that you are very aware. In fact, I think that this map does a little bit of a better job of showing us our flash flood warnings. And you can kind of see that it's literally they're almost all connected here, moving through Northwest Georgia. Make sure that you are very, very weather aware for the rest of tonight, at least until 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning, until that rainfall really starts to come to an end. Because as the rain continues, it's just going to continue to build upon itself, and we're going to start to see more flooding reports. As of right now, we're not seeing any flooding reports, which is great. I did get a notification from Aquila, and the Whitfield County Emergency Management. Okay, so Whitfield County Emergency Management updated a list of roads. Okay, so this is a long list. So what I will say is, I encourage you, if you know someone that lives in that, this is on Facebook, and I will share it to my Facebook page. Whitfield County Emergency Manager has shared a long list of impassable roads as well as flooded areas. So you need to make sure that you are very aware. Once again, this is Whitfield County in that lone square. And it's Whitfield and Murray counties that are being very impacted. That's the only place that I have seen actual reports from that flooding. Everywhere else that we are talking about, it is a risk, and it's all radar indicated. This warning is observed. So once again, turn on those notifications. Make sure that your family members are aware. Make sure that if you have loved ones in that area, that they know, hey, turn on your notifications if they upgrade a flash flood warning. What happens is sometimes, okay, that's good news. It looks like they just expired that warning. Sometimes the National Weather Service, they will come through. They work overnight all the time. So they will come through and they will update a warning, and the warning will say considerable, or it will just be a warning. And if it has that extra tag, like considerable, destructive, then that will prompt an emergency alert on your phone as if it was an Amber Alert. So that's why we're saying make sure you have those notifications on. It is 12:37. I know a lot of people will be going to sleep shortly. So I just got a lot of information in. Let me just read it out to you guys before I hop off of this live stream, so that we all can be on the same page and I'm not leaving you hanging with any information. So in fact, I'm going to pull it up on the computer so it's a little bit easier for me to see. So the National Weather Service in Birmingham, they let the first flash flood warning that was issued for Cherokee expire, and the considerable warning will remain in effect. And they are concerned about the water that's flowing down Hurricane Creek and Terrapin Creek headed towards Center. So that's on the other side, and they're watching the gauge on the Terrapin and Ellisville. So that's on the other side of the state. In fact, let me see if I can visually pull that up for you guys so that you're not too concerned about that. This is what we are monitoring. Turn this radar drape off. The considerable tag is on there still though, so they said that they're going to let that one stay. But the first warning was completed. But the considerable warning is still in effect. And just so you know, that does include Cherokee, Claiborne, and Calhoun. Let me see how long he has this in effect for. It's 12:30 Central Time, so that's 1:30 Eastern Time. So that's when that one will expire. And let me go to our Georgia information. Perfect. They just said expiring all flash flood warnings that are out in Northwest Georgia. The rain has ended or become light across those areas. So that's exactly what we're looking at on our tower camera. So we'll see some of those warnings dropping off here soon. And I will also pull back up that camera. This is in Blue Ridge. This is the camera that I would like to see there in Rome. So as of right now, which is good, this is a live look into Rome. We're not seeing any ponding on the major roads, but something that we'll keep our eye on. But the National Weather Service in Peachtree City, which operates here in Atlanta, they said that they're not anticipating any rainfall further. In fact, while I have you here, I know a lot of people might be wondering, well, what are we expecting for tomorrow here in Atlanta? While we're here, we can show you, once again, it does look like for Sunday morning, we could be seeing some isolated showers, maybe some heavy rainfall staying into mostly East Georgia. That cloud cover is going to keep us cooler, and then we'll start to dry out as we head into your Sunday evening. Monday looks about the same, to be honest, and I'll pull it through. Monday, we have some rain that's going to be coming in from the Gulf, some moisture. As you can see, it's coming in from the south there, and that rain will disperse. It won't be as heavy as it gets into Metro Atlanta right during our evening commute, but there's still going to be some rainfall there. That rainfall will taper off, and then more moisture coming in. And that's what I'm concerned about as we head into your Tuesday, because there's going to be more rain that's coming in those same areas once again. And it does look like for your Tuesday morning, all of the models have been kind of heavy on that rainfall for your Tuesday morning, and then going into Wednesday. Even if we take a look at this other model that I liked, it's our rapid update, our rapid refresh model. And this model has more rainfall coming in for your Monday morning. That's the one thing about these models. They're just not really agreeing on the rainfall. One thing that they are agreeing on is the temperatures for the next 7 days. And I think that is very important to note as well. Let's just look at our 7-day forecast, just in case you missed our 11 p.m. newscast. Our 7-day forecast shows those temperatures tomorrow, and this is Monday, 75 degrees. But tomorrow, in fact, let me switch to this one. It's hard. Once you reach midnight, everything goes over to the next day, even though it's still my Saturday. So 7-day forecast on Sunday shows 74 degrees is your actual temperature. This will be your high here in Metro Atlanta, 74 degrees. Another chilly day for your Monday as well. Rain chances throughout the next 7. Temperatures will be increasing. However, the rain chances will be sticking around. Rainfall totals are going to be off right now. I hesitate in showing you what the rainfall totals are, just because we're in an ongoing rain event right now. So if we start to see some of those storms kind of cycle and get heavier in the next few hours, that's going to change our rainfall totals. But anywhere from maybe 1 to 2 inches is what I suspect in the next 7 days. So just make sure you're prepared. Right now, severe weather is not on the table. And by severe, I do mean like high winds, tornadoes, lightning. The concern will be the flooding threat, specifically as we head into your Monday night and into your Tuesday. That the model's not agreeing, something that we'll have to continue to watch. I will be here with you as we head into your Sunday. Meteorologist Nicole Hartford, she's going to be in the next few hours, as she's going to take over the morning shift, and she's going to be watching these showers and thunderstorms as well. But for now, meteorologist Danielle Moss, I'm going to hop off of this live stream. If you're watching us on Facebook, on YouTube, go ahead and download our 11 Alive Plus app so that you can stay up to date on the latest forecast and watch those radar loops. So we'll try to Akila, will you keep the loops going just a few minutes so people can see what okay, thank you. She's going to keep the radar loops going so you all can see what it looks like on our end for that 24/7 stream that we have. And you can watch that any day, not just when it's a severe weather day, but this is a good time for you to have that, and make sure you have your notifications on for your phones and all of your electronic devices. Once again, I'm meteorologist Danielle Moss. I do hope that you stay safe tonight. I'm going to stay in the weather office for just a few more minutes to make sure that everything is okay. Look for some alerts, look for some potential flooding. Make sure that you are keeping up to date with me on Facebook as well. That's just Danielle Moss. You should be able to see all of my automatic updates, and I will be posting some of that information from Whitfield County so that you all can relay that to your family members as well. But for now, we will return you to some radar loops so that you all can stay up to date and see exactly what we are looking at on our end.